So sometimes, as we know, being a oncologist or even a patient is certainly a personal journey. And last year, some of you might remember, we had an extraordinary talk from my friend Janet Sollod, is a pediatrician who developed stage 4 breast cancer at the young age of 32, and she shared some of her story. It was a talk that got a lot of play. Dan Rather even covered it on his blog. I think if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go watch it on YouTube or exponentialmedicine.com. And it was an extraordinary talk. I want to play about the last 3 or 4 minutes of it, just to give you a taste, again, from the patient perspective. She shared, in this snippet, she sort of shared the story of her diagnosis. Let's just hear from Janet from last year.
Yes, I eat my fruits and veggies. I take lots of supplements specific to my illness. I drink lots of green tea. I don't drink alcohol anymore. I take probiotics, chia seeds, flax seeds. I get into nature, I exercise a lot, and I have a positive attitude. But you can't eat, pray, meditate, or yoga away death. Juicing and supplements, ozone and supercooling, these aren't going to prevent death. Life is terminal. What we can do is live well while we're dying. Accepting that death is coming, maybe sooner for me than others my age, isn't being pessimistic. It's real. I stopped working with my 4th recurrence. I'm doing things people do in retirement, traveling the Silk Road, hiking the John Muir Trail, climbing Mount Shasta. People keep asking me if I'm going back to work. No. I'm on my last recurrence. This one isn't going into remission or NED. I will die of liver failure when my treatments can't push back the tumor growth. Maybe I know this because I'm a physician or because I'm a realist. I'm not going to sugarcoat it to make other people feel better. About 30% of Medi-Cal dollars are spent in the last year of life. A study in the Annals of Internal Medicine showed that the more money spent at the end of life, the worse the dying process was. Conversely, the less money spent at the end of life, the better quality of death. I postulate that if we were more accepting that we will all die, we would significantly decrease our end-of-life spending, and we would also be less miserable at the end. Death is considered a failure in Western culture and medicine. As physicians, we are taught that if someone dies, it's because something went wrong. That's not true. Everybody dies. People who sign up for hospice live 1 to 2 months longer, but people think hospice is giving up, stopping the fight, losing hope. Not true. It's accepting that we are all mortal, and my time is coming. We need to talk about death and dying with our loved ones. As doctors, we need to talk about dying with our patients. Not only when the end is close, but at every age and stage of life. For example, when you have a baby, you need to think about what happens if you die. Maybe you enjoy heli skiing and the helicopter goes down, or an avalanche takes you out. Everyone needs an advance directive, a will, a trust. You may be thinking, how could she be dying? She looks great. Look at her energy. Yes, I am living well with my terminal diagnosis. I'm not laying down, rolling over, and giving up on life. As I said, I am not a statistic. You're not a statistic either. And you're definitely not a statistic. We're all going to beat the odds, right? Maybe, for a little while. But even if you're still jogging at 100 or jogging at 200, you're still going to die. If you knew when you were going to die, if you knew exactly how much time you had left, how would you live? What would you do the same or differently? I'll leave you with a little poem I wrote. In a hurry. I want to see, touch, do, taste, smell, feel everything. I want to go everywhere. Walk the earth, climb the mountains and snowboard down. Try everything at least once. Lots to do. I'm in a hurry. Not much time left. How long do I have before the cancer makes it impossible, narrows the world to just my room, my doctor's office, the hospital? I don't know. I can't know. Time wasted, planning for a future I don't have, working to save for a family I will never have. No more. I'm here now to experience everything, to dance and laugh and sing around the world and at home. But I can't do it all. No lifetime is enough to experience everything, to watch the sunrise from space. I will see, do, taste, smell, feel everything I can in my lifetime, however long or short it may be. And it will be enough.
I want to put my arm around you.
You're allowed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell me more about you.
I went to college, I went to medical school. I always knew I wanted to be a doctor. And I was 32,
Yeah.
and I knew that one side was lumpy, and the other side wasn't lumpy.
Yeah.
Talk about life-changing. Cancer is, whoa, you gotta look mortality in the face. You know,
Yeah.
the Grim Reaper's starting to like show up over your shoulder, and I was, what really helped for me was calling people. I knew I had to call
Connecting.
and tell people. And so I called and I told my family and close friends, and I felt like the more I told people and spread it out, the less I was carrying. So by telling my story, it's compelling and it engages people, but by bringing that to what's really important in life for you and for each person. Every day I have, I'm so thankful for, because I could have not been here. And tomorrow might not be here. And if this is what I got, wow, I totally won the jackpot. Like, whoa. My advice that I give to people that I meet who are newly diagnosed or newly diagnosed metastatic is there will be more good days than bad days. There will be bad days. There may be a few in a row, and then there'll be good days. And then the bad days will be less and fewer and further between, and there will be more good days. And if you can see that, you can get through it.
Have you heard this term, on your tombstone? There's the date you were born, the date you passed away, and then there's the dash. It's like, what did the dash stand for? What did that time, from the time you were born, that dash, what was your life meaning in that dash?
It's gonna say MIT, where I went to undergrad, MD, rock star with a star.
You are. You are.
Thank you.
Oh, you are a rock star of life.
You know?
May I have this dance? If we didn't dance on this
course.
bridge, spinning you,
So beautiful.
dipping you.
Oh.
Ready?
Oh. Oh.
Man, she was fierce. She was fierce in life, and she's powerful in death. She changed me as a doctor, as an oncologist, and I'll always love her. And that day was very special, and thank you all for being here. This is the first anyone's ever seen this. I called her after she gave her talk, and Daniel introduced us. I was here, I saw it, and I said, she's got to be on my show. And she flew down, got on a plane that minute, and came down, and we had that beautiful day together. So we love you. We love you.
I call this Butterflies, a tribute to Dr. Janet Sollod. Dr. Janet Sollod was my bunkmate at summer camp in 5th grade, a fellow attendee at USC Medical School, a loved pediatrician, a conference-going partner in crime, a travel adventure buddy, a best friend, a rock star, and, most importantly, one of the best teachers I've had in life. During the last few months of her life, she spoke all over the country about death and dying. She also spent time, those last few months, caring for multiple women who passed away of breast cancer just before she passed away. And she calmly set up a very clear path for her desires for the end of her life. During that time on a hike once, she told me that the butterflies flying around us were souls of her friends who had just passed away from breast cancer. She looked around and said, "They're with us today." Her last month of life was exactly as she'd predicted. She was homebound. She was surrounded by friends and family on a shared Google calendar schedule for visits. There was much love, laughter, and celebration. When Janet passed away this past May, the first thing I did was run outside and look for the butterflies, of course. And I didn't see them. 24 hours, exactly 24 hours, past her death, I was on a hike and several monarch butterflies were circling magically around me. In Jewish tradition, 24 hours is the time when the body transitions. And there she was. Janet was still with me. Janet only wanted her friends and family to celebrate her life and be grateful for all that she got to do during her lifetime. I'm wearing her necklace today, oddly enough, the one that's in the video, and it says dance on it. And that was Janet's spirit, to dance. She left this for me, along with leaving all of her items very carefully planned for all of her close friends and family. If you will share with me a moment of gratitude in honor of Janet. My gratitude lists are in threes, so there'll be three. My very first thought of gratitude is for Daniel Kraft, for giving my friend a venue to speak about her experience. That talk at Exponential Medicine and this community set her off into a very purposeful last 6 months of her life, where she was speaking about death and dying in many different venues, affecting so many people. I'm forever grateful to you, Daniel. Gratitude for Dr. Shoshana Ungerleider, who will speak next, and all of the palliative care doctors that help our community to die with grace. And finally, gratitude to Janet Sollod for teaching us how to live, how to die, and how to love.
Thanks. Yeah, Janet certainly taught us about living and dying, and as the world works in mysterious ways, a couple months after she passed away, I was in Aspen at the Spotlight Health Festival talking to an amazing physician who happened to work in palliative care, and I shared the story about Janet, and she said, I just took care of her. I was her palliative care doctor in her last hours of life. And I said, You've got to come to Exponential Medicine and share a little bit of that, which she's actually looking at in terms of the future of ending well and how to design the end well. So let's welcome Shoshana Ungerleider. Thanks, Shoshana.
I knew Janet. I first got to know her through a mutual friend, and then I happened to be on call the night she was admitted the first time for liver failure. And then I was on call the night she died. Janet was an extraordinary person who lived her dying as well, or perhaps better, than most people live their living. Last year, you saw, Janet spoke before you here as the exception that proves the rule. People like Janet, who experience dying on their own terms, are rare. You almost have to be a physician in order to know how to navigate the complex, convoluted healthcare system in order to get what you want. By default, you will receive aggressive, invasive care. No matter how old you are, no matter how sick you are, even if it won't help you, unless you opt out loudly. A friend and colleague of mine calls our default protocols the end-of-life conveyor belt, a conveyor belt that has people receiving chemotherapy in the last weeks of their lives, or intubated, hooked up to tubes and machines in their last moments, despite the fact that it won't help them. The way we treat dying in America today is a public health crisis. So, what can we do? Let's start with 3 concepts: communication, community, and communion. All 3 share the same Latin root, communis, which means common. Despite it eventually happening to everyone, dying in America is somehow considered to be an uncommon experience. Uncommon, and it's never happened to that particular person before. And on a larger scale, uncommon in that we believe it's an experience that fundamentally can't be shared, or that sharing it is somehow a cruelty. The resulting fear, isolation, over-treatment, and missed opportunities for human connection are currently killing people long before they die. Death is considered a failure in Western culture and in medicine. As doctors, we're taught that if someone dies, it's because something went wrong. And that can be true, but mostly it's not. Death is normal. It's inevitable. It's common. Which brings me to communication. Critical conversations aren't taking place along the way in order to make sure that the care people receive is care they really want and that they understand. The top line is that doctors have information they say they want to share, but don't know how. And patients say they want information, but in reality, many don't know how to hear it, creating a sort of negative feedback loop. Let's break this down. We know that 80% of people want to die at home. 20% actually do. The rest are dying in our hospitals, in our nursing homes, and other healthcare facilities. We know that 30% of people spend their last days of life in the ICU before they die. And nearly 60% of people are dying in pain. We can do better. Doctors want to engage, but a recent JAMA article suggested that nearly 70% of physicians haven't been trained to have these difficult conversations. We must do better. Communication training is fundamental and should be required of all healthcare staff. But research and experience also suggest that a huge barrier to communication, both sharing and receiving, is around values. If patients aren't encouraged to think deeply about their values, their families, and their doctors can't know how to assess treatment options, which means they often default to accepting or asking for more treatment on the assumption that more is better. Sadly, unless it's more time with the people you love at the end of life, more usually isn't better. And if doctors haven't been encouraged to think deeply about their values and the belief that death is a failure, they'll avoid anything that might be perceived as giving up. Believe me, I see this a lot. Other doctors see a palliative care physician walk into a patient room, and they take it as a sign of defeat. I understand. I remember being a medical student and meeting a palliative care physician for the first time. And I wondered why, with so much training, anyone would want to concede to death. Turns out, I was wrong, like so many people are, about what palliative care actually is. It's about so much more than just the end of life. It's a field of medicine that focuses on quality of life for patients and their families facing serious illness, and it can be used at any time during the course of that illness, not just at the end of life. That said, no matter the quality of care or treatment options, we will all reach a day when we're very near to the end. And my time training in the ICU has taught me that not accepting the inevitable can force unspeakable pain on the dying. And while incredible technology saves lives every day in our ICUs, we're also prolonging suffering for far too many people. Suffering that could otherwise be avoided, and suffering that may also be taking a massive toll on doctors and other healthcare staff, whose rates of burnout, depression, substance abuse, and suicide are of tremendous concern. So what can we do? I believe there's a radically simple solution. What if the entire healthcare system was geared toward asking patients one question? What are your goals and values of how you want to live your life? Then tailoring all care based on the answers to that question. 600,920. That's the projected number of people who will die in 2017 of cancer. What if we were to ask each of them, what are your goals and values of how you want to live your life? We'd get 600,920 different responses. There isn't a one-size-fits-all when it comes to end-of-life wishes. And this is where community comes into play. In order to tailor care to each individual's end-of-life values, we need robust communities. Medically, it requires a team comprised of a nurse, a social worker, a chaplain, and a physician. At home or in hospice, it also requires family, caregivers, and often friends and volunteers, each of whom needs their own networks of support. For no matter how much better we make the experience of dying, it will never be easy. And it takes a healthy culture around dying. End of life in America is not going to be the best it can be until we build the experience of dying into how we measure ourselves as a society. We must consider how we care for others through illness and death to be a primary measure of our civic health. We can learn from places like La Crosse, Wisconsin, a town with a population of 50,000, where 96% of the people who died in 2009 had filled out an advance directive, codifying their conscious wishes about how they would like to die. Turns out, costs per person in their last year of life were lower in La Crosse compared to the rest of the state. But more importantly, doctors knew how to proceed, and family members didn't have to agonize about what their loved ones wanted. Or the state of Kerala in India, where 35 million people live, and an almost completely bottom-up, dispersed collection of individuals and small organizations provide community-based palliative care. Finally, ending well takes communion, which I confess began as a nice way to alliterate the concept of empathy. But as I thought more about it, it occurred to me that communion is in fact the perfect word. To me, it's sort of radical empathy, in that you're not imagining the experience of another, but instead you're inviting them to share with you the intimacies of their lived experience as it's unfolding. I sort of see it as a Vulcan mind meld, or the call and response of prayer, a very powerful affirmation that even while dying, you're part of the living, and that you're loved and valued, and that you have something to share that only you can share. A beautiful example of communion was Janet, bravely taking this stage last year and sharing her experience with you. Now, like many of you, I've gone to conferences and convenings of all sorts, trying to get a better sense of the world as it relates to my work. And in the realm of palliative care, there's some wonderful things happening, but it's still a small effort in a giant fractured system. And I can tell you that not enough is happening at a scale or speed fast enough to handle what's about to come. In America, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every day. Even if we were to have massive breakthroughs in longevity science, never in our history will such a large number of people die in such a short time span from natural causes. And to make matters more complex, causes of death are now largely chronic conditions which can require care for years. This is a huge challenge that we simply can't tackle from inside healthcare, nor should we. Ending well is a human issue, not a medical one. As I said, I've gone to scores of gatherings, trying to figure out how to move the dial on improving the end-of-life experience. And it wasn't until I attended a talk on human-centered design that I finally felt I'd found a way in. I realized that what I was fundamentally after was a conversation about living, not dying. And the questions that designers ask about who, what, why, and how are the questions that we need to answer. Yet what I've learned is that in the medical realm in general, and in palliative care in particular, there are tremendously high real and perceived barriers to entry. I've met many seriously talented, smart people doing incredible work in their fields who are stunned when I suggest that they might have something to contribute to redesigning the end-of-life experience. So how do we tackle this issue? I founded Endwell Symposium to explicitly invite anyone who's interested to join in changing how we die. We're bringing a diverse, interprofessional group of people together on December 7th in San Francisco to listen and to learn from each other Our goal is to create a cultural shift, one that supports new collaborations, products, protocols, and systems, and one that fosters new and existing networks of support. And I hope you can join us. Janet spoke before you here last year. As you saw, she was truly, thankfully, and completely alive during the final months of her life. Let us all learn from Janet what it means to live well until the very end. Thank you.